Good morning, everyone. We are up to Perek Vav, Mishna Aleph. Ha'eichal truma b'shoigeg, one who eats truma unintentionally, Meshalem keren v'chaimesh, has to pay the principal plus a fifth. This is derived from a verse in the Torah that if a person eats, meaning a non-kohen eats truma, does it unintentionally, he's got to pay. He's got to pay. He's got to replace, actually, as we'll see, and add a fifth. Okay, so when we talk about eating truma includes truma gedayla, the truma that we give, that we separate first for the kohen. It includes the trumas meiser. It includes what a Levi has to give from his tenth, a tenth of his tenth going to the kohen. It includes eating bikurim. It includes eating challah. All these the Torah refers to as truma, and therefore, when the Torah says eating truma has a payment of the principal plus a fifth, it applies to all those things. We say it only applies if you did it b'shoy, if you did it unintentionally. What does that intentionally mean? So intentionally either means that you didn't know you were eating truma, or it means, I have a little guest here. It means that you didn't know you were eating truma, or it means you didn't know that it was wrong for you to eat truma, or the third thing is, if you knew all these things, you knew it's forbidden, you knew eating truma, you knew it's forbidden, but you did not know that the punishment of eating truma, if a person does it intentionally, is what we call misa b'dei shemayim, death at the hands of heaven, that also would constitute a shogeg that's being done unintentionally, and this law would apply. Now, we say that you have to pay the principal plus a fifth. A fifth means like this. Let's just give an example. Let's say you ate $1 worth of truma. So a quarter of that would be 25 cents. So what it means to add a fifth is actually to take a quarter of the principal, add it, and now you have 5 quarters. That's the fifth. It's a fifth basically of the total. You're actually adding a quarter, but now adding the quarter, you now have 5 quarters. That is what it means, a fifth. So it's really adding another quarter to the amount. Now, Mishna continues, whether you eat, drink, or apply it to your skin. Now, excuse me, when the Torah talks about this law about having to pay the principal plus a fifth, the Torah talks about eating. But we derive from other sources in the Torah that drinking is considered like eating, and that anointing is like drinking. So therefore, this law applies to all 3 things. However, it only applies if you eat what's supposed to be eaten, drink what's supposed to be drunk, and you anoint what's supposed to be used for anointing. So for instance, you anoint with oil. You do not typically eat straight oil. Were you to eat straight oil, that's not called eating, that's called damaging. Damaging, you have to pay the principal, but not the fifth. It's only when it comes to actually eating or anything falling under the category of eating, drinking, or anointing, and only applying to things that's what you normally do with them. If you anoint yourself with wine, you don't have that law of keren v'chaimesh because of the fact that you drink wine, you don't anoint yourself with wine. Echad truma tahira v'echad truma tameya. The law applies both by truma that is pure or impure. Again, you pay the principal and the fifth. Mishalem chumisha v'chaimesh chumisha. You pay its fifth and a fifth of its fifth. What that means is like this. That means that when let's say you ate truma accidentally, now you have to replace it. As we're going to learn, you don't pay money. You replace it with other grain that turns into truma. So now, when you go ahead and you replace the truma you ate unintentionally with the principal plus a fifth, okay, so you take grain that equals that's the same value, the same value of the original truma plus a fifth of that, that grain now turns into truma. Let's say now somebody unintentionally eats the fifth. The answer is that fifth becomes like a principal now. And you add, and you have to pay for it plus a fifth of that. That's what it means, chumisha v'chaimesh chumisha, a fifth and a fifth of its fifth. Not only do you pay a fifth when you eat the original truma, but if it comes out that somebody ate the replacement truma or just the replacement fifth, or a fifth of the replacement truma, you now treat that fifth like a principal. You have to replace it plus a fifth of that. Eina mishalim truma. You cannot pay the Kohen back with other truma. Other truma is not yours. This is something you ate his truma. It's an obligation for you to replace it. If you're using other truma, it's not yours. Other truma belongs to Kohanim. So you're basically paying a debt for something that's not yours. Elachulin misakanim. You have to use chulin. That means not truma, but it also means misakanim. There has to be all tithed. That means anything that has to come out of this has to come out. It cannot be tevel. Tevel is the term that we use for grain that doesn't have everything separated from it. That means you have to separate truma and meiser and the meiser sheni. All the meisers, all the ties, plus the truma have to be removed. And that's called chulin misakanim. That's called chulin that is fixed. It has to be all ready to eat without any issues. The haim nasim truma. And this chulin, this grain that you now use to pay up with, when you set it aside as the payment, it will become truma. And the fifth becomes truma. Vatashlumin truma. And the replacement for that becomes truma. What that means is that if, let's say, you separated truma to pay back the Kohen, and then you or someone else that ate that replacement truma accidentally. So again, it also now that it has to be replaced, it has to be paid for, and what is now being used to pay for it becomes truma. Meaning, it's not just what you're using to pay for the original truma that becomes truma. What you use to pay for the truma becomes truma to the point that if somebody eats it unintentionally, it will also be replaced with chulim b'sukanim, but chulim that are fixed, which will also become truma. So the point is that the replacement truma, the grain that you set aside to pay for what you back for accidentally, becomes full-fledged truma. And so much so, says the Yad Avram, becomes full-fledged truma that, going back to what we're discussing until now, if let's say it falls into a mix, if let's say it falls into a pile of chulin, and there's not 100 times more than it, it's going to make it meduma. It's going to make it forbidden because it's as a forbidden mixture. Imratza kohen limchel. If let's say the Kohen wants to forgive, say, you don't have to replace it. It's okay. He can't do it. Rajanu explains that being that the Torah clearly didn't want you can't use money. You can't just pay him back. The Torah wanted you to replace it. The Torah wanted you to take produce and make that produce as truma to take care of the truma that was eaten. It's very clear the Torah is not leaving it as not considering it just a payment to the Kohen. Otherwise, money would have sufficed. It's something the Torah wants you specifically to do, and therefore the Kohen cannot forgive it. Okay. Next mitzvah. Prohibition against the woman, the wife of a person who died without children, to marry someone other than her brother-in-law. We're referring here to the mitzvah of yibum. If a person dies without children, there is a mitzvah upon his brother to marry his sister-in-law, so that the children that they have are considered a remembrance for the brother who passed away. And as long as now that's the mitzvah, and she is not allowed to marry anybody else until either that mitzvah is performed or she is freed through the process of chalitza. Chalitza is if the brother-in-law doesn't want to marry his sister-in-law, he frees her through a process of chalitza, then she can go in and marry anybody else. But until then, she's forbidden to marry someone else. And that's his prohibition. Shenam, as the pasuk states, Leisia Eshes Hameis Hachutza Li'ish Zar. The wife of the dead one, the dead brother, cannot go outside of marrying her brother-in-law. V'myesh lameis ach min ha'av. So now, if the person who died has a brother from the father, that meaning it's only a brother from the father that this mitzvah of yibum applies to. If he did not free her through chalitza, if she marries a person who is, again, not her brother-in-law, and they're intimate, both of them are going to transgress this prohibition. And now he has to divorce her. She now needs chalitza to be free from the yavim. Then she can go in and marry somebody, again, outside of her brother-in-law. So basically, the prohibition is not so much if she's just immoral with someone else. It means if she marries someone else and they're intimate, then you transgress this prohibition. He married her, and the marriage took effect. So he's got to divorce her because now let's say married to her, he can't just let her go, can't just free her. They've been married. He has to divorce her. But again, if she wants to now go ahead and not marry the brother-in-law is going to have to do chalitza, right? She's going to need chalitza from the Yavim. Brother-in-law is going to free her, and then she's able to marry anybody that she wants. This applies in all places and at all times. Have a wonderful day. So yeah.